So, I absolutely love both paladins and rogues in D&D 5e. The unfortunate thing is that they don't really work together. The paladin requires so many attributes to multiclass in or out. You need strength and charisma. In order to multiclass into or out of rogues, you need dexterity. It's a big ask, and they seem to be a little bit at odds with one another when it comes to what their goal is. But what if we found a way to kind of mesh those ideas and make a bit of an Inquisitor, a left hand of the church, the sinister idea that needs to get things done because the right side and the face of the church needs to keep its profile up? I think that we're on to something.
So this is a build that I've been trying to mess with for quite a while and figure out the best way to get it done, because naturally it kind of seems like it's going to fall behind in pretty much the early tiers of play. Once you get up into, tier 2 and 3, it shouldn't matter so much, but tier 1 seems like it really lags behind. However, I think we found a workaround. So bear with me on this one. This is my Inquisitor build. I got a chance to kind of test it out in a bit of a one-shot, and I really had a good time playing it. I tried it at around a level 7, 8 kind of a build. Mathematically, I think I came up with a good way to get from level 1 to wherever you play. Like I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I'm only going to be doing builds from level 1 to like 11. After you get to that point, you should have a good idea of what's going on. Planning more than 1 or 2 levels at a time is kind of a big risk in general. Let's be honest, most groups fall apart at the drop of a hat from scheduling things, so trying to plan out a whole character, you out of your mind? But this is also one of those few builds that I'm going to recommend multiclassing before level 5. And I'm going to do that mostly because, well, you only need 2 levels in Paladin to make it work. Our goal for this is to create that left hand of the church that works in the shadows to get things done. Kind of a very Assassin's Creed kind of a view, we work in the shadows to serve the light kind of a thing. You know what I'm talking about, right? With that, let's jump into the build. I'm actually going to be running this through the Roll20 Charactermancer. I kind of have it set up a little bit already. But we're going to be kind of jumping into that so you can see what the character sheet's going to look like. You're going to see what options you have at any given point. And hopefully it'll kind of give you an obvious way to show how weird half and third caster multi-classing spell slots work. I'm going to try and illustrate that as best as I can, so bear with me on this one. Let's jump in. So for this, realistically you can play whatever you want, but I really recommend picking a race that is going to give you a cantrip to start off with. I chose High Elf, and we really want to have that booming blade. It's going to help kind of balance our damage against all of the classes that are going to be getting their spikes where we're kind of lagging behind. So in doing that, we are going to start off with +2 in dexterity and +1 in charisma. That's going to help our multi-classing ability let us get out of Paladin and into Rogue without, the delayed ASI that we're going to look at. We're not going to get our first ASI until level 6 with this build, so we need to be really good in the early game and set ourselves up for success. So like I said here, we have an elf here. We're going to do +2 to dexterity. Alignment doesn't matter. But if you're going to be doing an Inquisitor kind of build, let's be honest, you're going to be lawful good. All of this normal stuff, pick up whatever, languages, stuff like that you want. For our +1 from being a high elf, we're going to add that to charisma. That's also going to help our multi-classing situation. Language proficiencies, doesn't matter. I threw Celestial on here because, you're going to hear the voice of your god in the back of your head, and it just kind of makes sense to me. And then we're going to be starting off with a Paladin. And Paladin kind of brings a lot of things that we need right off the bat. It's going to give us our weapon proficiencies, it's going to give us heavy armor and shield proficiencies, and it's going to let us take a couple of skills that we'll be able to use right off the bat. From this, we're going to be the standard rogue kind of skill monkey setup that's also going to be able to do a lot of Nova damage. So for your skill proficiencies, Paladins, I love Persuasion and Intimidation for this one. You're going to be going for your kind of charisma face skills. You're going to be getting the information that you need kind of at all costs. You get Lay on Hands, you get Divine Sense, all that fun stuff, and you get some decent starting equipment, which is really nice. The Rogue doesn't get nearly as good of a starting equipment because, well, they don't need as much. They're going to be living in the leathers and all that. We are going to be a frontline Rogue, so we need to have the heavy armor proficiency. You'll see what I mean moving on. For our abilities, I strongly recommend that you go point buy on this one. If you go standard array, I do have my notes here. Point buy you can see on screen. We're going to be putting our 13 in strength because we need a 13 to get out of Paladin. 15 into Dex because that's going to be our primary ability score. We're going to be putting 12 into Constitution for +1 to our HP early on, and con saves are always important. We're going to keep Intelligence and Wisdom at a 10. We don't want to be going negative into Wisdom if we can help it. Intelligence, less important because all the spells that we're going to be picking, well, you'll see. We're not going to really care about our spell save DC. And then we're going to be putting 13 into our Charisma. Now, if you go standard array, I recommend that the array kind of look like this, where you go 13 strength, 15 dex, 14 con, 8 intelligence, 10 wisdom, and 12 charisma. It's going to give you 1 more HP to start with, but your intelligence is going to be negative probably throughout your entire career. I really recommend the point buy version though. Go with that. For the background, pick whatever background you want. I really like Spy because it gives us the 3rd charisma face skill. We're going to be doing Deception. And Stealth, if you end up switching over to studded leather armor in the future because you find a magical version of that, or, for whatever reason you're finding that you're getting into stealth a lot more and the heavy armor of plate and chainmail and all that stuff is detrimental to you, well, it'll work out for you. And you get free proficiency in Thieves' Tools, which means that when we get into Rogue, we don't have to use one of our proficiencies on that. We already have it. Other than that, pick your game set, pick your specialty, all this stuff, that's entirely up to you. Now, we are Paladin, so we get the Paladin starting equipment, which means that we're going to start off with Chainmail, which is 16 AC, I believe. We're also going to be able to pick a shield and a martial weapon of our choice. Obviously, we're going to go Rapier because it's the highest damage that you can get on a finesse weapon. But if you want reach, I really recommend going with a whip. It's actually a really good opportunity because we're not going to worry so much about, the 2 damage on average that you would be getting, right? Average as you go up in a dice size increases by 1, right? D4 to D6 to D8 +1 +1. That's how that's going to work. So whip is actually really good here, and you might be able to get some really flavorful stuff going on here if you were to pick up, Thunderous Smite in the future or Searing Smite. Those both are very whippy in my head. But Javelin, so we have a little bit of range, and Priest Pack, Explorer Pack, whatever, it's really up to you. For our spells, we are a high elf, so we get a cantrip from the wizard spell list. Like I said, Booming Blade is your choice here. It's going to help kind of balance out the fact that we won't be picking up extra attack and all that. So, and it's another, thing to layer on to our sneak attacks. We don't get a feat, but if your table does do level 1 feats, I know it's a super common homebrew rule. It's what I do at my table. There's a couple of options here. Piercer is going to be a really good one, but your best option is probably Mobile. I know that we're going to be getting free Misty Step from being a high elf in the future, but being able to disengage for free is going to be a huge boon when you're playing this kind of hit and run skirmisher kind of a play style. Other options, realistically, whatever you want. Telekinetic is a really good option. You could go Magic Initiate, you could go Ritual Caster. Anything that you want that's going to bolster your team, you can go ahead and use that level 1 feat to go ahead and make yourself just overall more useful to your team. Bio, we're not filling that out. And that's pretty much what our level 1 character looks like. So we are going to be able to consistently be able to hit with 1d8 plus our dex, which is a 3 at this level. If you want to use a heft feat that's going to increase your dexterity, that might be a good choice. It'll kind of get you up into that +4 more regularly. Piercer is a really good option for that. Slasher is less good, but if you go with the whip route, I would go that way. Just whatever you want to use that heft feat to go ahead and get your dex up +1. That would be where I would put that. For level 2, we're not going to be doing anything particularly interesting. We're just going into level 2 Paladin. It'll give us smites and some half-caster ability. So we're going to stay right there, not doing anything special. We do get a fighting style. In this case, there's 2 options that I recommend. You either go dueling for the +2 to your damage on your rapier or your whip or whatever, or you go into defense to raise your AC by 1. Either one is a good choice. whichever one you want to play totally makes sense to me. I personally am going to go with defense because I find that extra AC is going to be really good. It makes you basically have +1 to whatever your armor or shield is at that point. You get to prepare and cast a couple of spells. We're a paladin, so you're going to go with the kind of standard ones here. I really like Shield of Faith, again, for +2 more. I really like Shield of Faith here for +2 more AC. Like I said, Thunderous Smite is a really good one. Searing Smite is also another really good one. You could do a couple of other things, Wrathful or Protection from Evil and Good, all of that normal stuff. But like I said, we're going to be doing this kind of Inquisitor build, so you're not going to be out there trying to do, your Cure Wounds. You have a little bit of healing, you have 10 points of HP in your Lay on Hands. That's not really going to be your primary goal. But also, you're a paladin. You prepare your spells every day, so go ahead and change them at the end of any long rest into whatever you think is going to be necessary. And that's it. That's level 2. There's nothing special about it. But that is the end of our paladin journey. We got a little taste, but we don't quite think that we're ready to swear an oath yet. We don't necessarily believe in the oath of the crown or the ancients or of vengeance or of conquest. That's not our calling. We like to work in the shadows. We're not going to announce the things that we are standing for. We want them to find out after they're dead, right? So, with our next level up, this is where we move over to Rogue. So, we're going to ditch our Paladin level here. We're going to pick up our multiclass, and we are going to multiclass into Rogue 1 level. There we go. So, what do we get with Rogue? Well, that's when we start to pick up some more of our skills. We are going to be very skill heavy at this point. I really like Investigation for our first one, or you can do Sleight of Hand. Acrobatics, maybe. I think you're getting a little bit generous there, so let's go ahead and pick Investigation or Insight. Those would be the two that I would really recommend. We get Thieves' Cant, we get Sneak Attack, and here's where we get our first bit of expertise. I think you are going to be really wanting to be intimidating because you're doing the dark stuff that the church doesn't really want you to know about it. You want people to keep their mouths shut or open, if you know what I mean. And then expertise in Thieves' Tools is always a great option. It's going to make it so that you can get into those locked chests and doors and make sure that you're getting out of, shackles or anything like that. It's just going to make you overall more useful. Now, we are kind of at a point where a lot of characters, at least every character, is going to have the option of having their subclass at this point. So how do we kind of match up against them? Well, we have 2 first level slots that we can smite with. We're going to get 1d6 on Sneak Attack, and we have our standard Rapier. We are able to stack on a couple of other bonus action spells if you get a point where someone has been hit with a whole person and you know that you're going to crit. Well, that would be a good opportunity to use your bonus action to go ahead and pre-buff your damage and make sure that everything that's going to be coming out is going to be doing the most damage. Now, levels 4 and 5, I'm going to combine them because, let's be honest, we're just on this rogue path and we're trying to get to level 5 where we're going to get our rogue subclass. We are going to pick the Arcane Trickster. This is going to make it so that we are going to continue to grow our amount of spell slots over the course of our journey, and this way we can get more smites and kind of effectively build ourselves into a really interesting Dexedin. And we also get the Mage Hand Legerdemain, where this is where a bit of the RP comes in, where you kind of have that hand of your god around with you. It's an invisible mage hand that has, more power than a standard mage hand. You can manipulate more objects with it, stow them, all that fun stuff. I'll go ahead and bring that up here. You also get, standard rogue stuff, right? You're going to get your steady aim. You're going to get your, cunning action, where you get your bonus action disengage or hide or all that, where you're going to be kind of giving yourself more options of what you can do in combat, of how to move around, keep yourself safe. Let's be honest, you're not going to want to stand there. You have the option of heavy armor and a shield, but you're also going to be able to use your booming blade to create that distance to force enemies to move in order to hit you and take that rider effect, now that we have that going on. Also, at this point, rogues get some spells. Our intelligence, which is what the rogues use for their casting ability is going to be pretty lacking. So our goal here is to pick spells that don't require an attack roll or DC. They're going to be very utility-based spells. So we get cantrips from either the illusion or enchantment schools on the wizard spell list. There's not a whole lot there, so kind of pick the ones you like. I really like Minor Illusion for that. Message is a really good one. I think Message is on there. If not, Mind Sliver could be really good. Friends is always a really fun one to get advantage on a lot of your charisma checks, stuff like that. Where even is the Friends? There it is. I would pick Minor Illusion or Friends, honestly. And we also are going to get a couple of new spells from the wizard spell list, first level spells. Like I said, we're not going to be using this for damage. It's mostly for utility and, protecting ourselves and all of that fun stuff. Because we're going to be going into dexterity, if you want to switch out of your chain and, use that stealth ability that you have, you're going to have the option of mage armor. Ultimately, this will be better than plate mail. Shield is a really good one to increase your AC by 5. Detect Magic is always a really good one. Find Familiar is an absolutely good one. You're going to be able to generate on-demand sneak attack if you have an owl with flyby. Now, your DM, if they're smart, is going to target that Familiar after kind of the first round or two of combat. Let's be honest, if an owl's coming in harassing enemies, they're going to focus on it. And it may buy you, an attack where you don't get hit, but Find Familiar for an owl, 100% where you want to go on this one. Featherfall is a great one. Somebody's got to have it, and, well, you're somebody. I'm going to recommend that you go with Shield, Find Familiar, and, well, whatever else you really want. Unseen Servant is another kind of RP option. Identify is a good one. You pick it. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to go with Detect Magic on this build just for the sake. All right. We've hit level 5. We are effectively where most characters are going to be getting a pretty big power spike. Full casters are getting their 3rd level spells. Martial characters are getting extra attack. Half casters are getting their 2nd level spell slots. We don't get any of that, and they've already gotten an ASI as well. We don't get that either. So where do we stand up? Well, we're okay, I guess. We are going to be able to use our rapier alongside Booming Blade to add an extra D8. So we're going to go ahead and throw that on the global damage here. This is Booming Blade. So what an average round of combat is going to look like is going to be a little bit up to you and your playstyle, but this is going to be an up-in-your-face skirmisher kind of character. You're going to get up, you're going to attack with your rapier with advantage because of your Owl Familiar and Flyby, and you're going to deal sneak attack, and you're going to have the option to smite on top of it. So if we go ahead and see what that looks like, let me go ahead and just move my face here. We're going to attack with our rapier. We are being able to Booming Blade, sneak attack, and smite on top of that. So we are going to get 1d8 plus 3, which is kind of what the standard rapier attack is. And then we're going to get 2d8 for Divine Smite, 2d6 for sneak attack, and 1d8 for Booming Blade. And then if the enemy moves, it's going to be another d8 on top of that. So another 5. That's a lot of damage. But what do our spell slots look like at that point? Well, because we're multi-classing a half caster and a 3rd caster, we have 3 first level slots. It's not much. Believe me, I know, but it's what you get. This is going to increase over time. I'm going to be kind of hitting, the major points of that. Remember, we still have 6 levels left in this video, and then the epilogue kind of an area where we talk about 12 through 20, but that's a shorter section. Also, look at all of these skills that we are proficient or have expertise in, right? Deception, Intimidation, Investigation, Perception, Persuasion, Stealth, and Thieves' Tools. We are just your standard skill monkey rogue who can also throw smites on top of things. So realistically, just for fun at this point, you're going to be getting advantage. So let's see what a crit looks like on this build. All right, here we go. That is a pretty good bit of damage. We're looking at 19 plus 26. Now that is a pretty good bit of damage. We're looking at 19 plus 26. That is 45 damage on a single hit. That's not bad, and that's not even a very good roll, right? We rolled well here. On this one, we got 2 1s. On this one, we got a 1, and everything rolled 4 or below. Let's go ahead and re-roll that a little higher. Look at that. Much, much better, right? Here's 40, 55 damage on better rolls, realistically, is kind of what we're looking at here. The damage output is gory. You know, you don't have a ton of resources. You're not going to have smites all the time, but you will have sneak attack every time. Remember, you're a rogue, you don't get extra attack, so you're going to be trying to get advantage either from your allies, from your familiar, from being hidden as best you can, all of those different things. You're going to be able to kind of crit fish wherever you can at this point. From here, your next 8 levels are, from here, your next 6 levels are all going to go into rogue. By the time you hit the end of campaign of level 11, you're going to be 2 paladin, 9 rogue. It's a really nice spot to be. You're going to pick up lots of stuff. You are going to get 2 ASIs. Your sneak attack is going to increase. You're going to get a reaction uncanny dodge to reduce 1 bit of incoming damage by half. You're going to get more expertise, and you're going to get evasion. So all of your dexterity saves, you're either going to take half or no damage on, which is great as someone who's built as a, pseudo paladin with heavy armor to really increase your AC. A great opportunity to pick up the Shield Master feat as well. All these different things kind of look like this. You're going to pick your expertise. Maybe you want to go into deception and investigation. You want to find out really what these sinners are hiding from your god. I realize I'm leaning into a very kind of Western Catholic culture with this Inquisitor, but I mean, it could be whatever god you want, and their church is feeling, shorted by whatever evil, or maybe you are playing an evil character and your evil god needs you to kind of do some stuff behind the scenes so that their followers don't get targeted as much. There's lots of different RP opportunities here for you to work out with your DM, and I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend that you work with your DM on this. When you get this magical ambush thing, I don't think it's particularly interesting, but your DC isn't going to be high enough that it's going to make much of a difference, but you will be able to kind of increase your ability to do spells that have the enemies make saves against it. In the end, realistically, you are going to want to bump dex. Maybe you want to grab that piercer feat like I talked about. This will let you kind of max out your dexterity now, and then you are also going to get more damage when you get to reroll one of your rapier damage dice, and you get to do basically the equivalent of Savage Attacker or the half-orc critical bonus where you get an extra dice. It's a nice feat because it'll kind of round out your dexterity ability. As for spells, again, we're going for stuff that doesn't really require DCs. So being able to do see invisibility or, magic weapon is going to be really nice, or invisibility is a really good one if I could find it on here. There you go. These are all really, really good options for you because they don't necessarily require that your spell save DC be particularly high. You just want to add buffs that are going to improve you or your teammates. When you get to this level 11 character, you're not going to have a ton of spell slots, right? You're going to have 3 second level spell slots and 4 first level spell slots. That's not a lot, but that is 7 opportunities to smite. Most combat doesn't last more than 3 or 4 rounds, so you are able to smite on every single one of your turns alongside your booming blades, your sneak attacks. At this point, your sneak attack is all the way up to 5d6. You're in a really, really good spot when it comes to your ability to maintain dealing damage. You've got lots of utility because you're mostly a rogue. You've got Nova in being a paladin and be able to throw down some smites. You've got the AC of a paladin. You've got the saves of a rogue. You've got the damage reduction of a rogue. You've got the evasion of a rogue. You've got the expertise of a rogue. It's a really, really fun build. It lags just a tiny bit, but we kind of tried to grab Booming Blade to compensate for the lack of extra attack. Again, this is one of the only times I'm going to recommend that you multi-class before level 5, and it's because you only need the 2 levels in Paladin to grab hold of a smite. There's other variations where, you would instead take 3 levels of Fighter to get Action Surge, and Champion to increase your critical range, but I think this is more fun. I think this provides more RP opportunity. And I think that in general, this is just a super fun build to play, especially, if you have mobile. If you find a way to get a mount and you can do, mounted combatant, if you pick up ritual caster to increase your, out of combat utility from a magical point of view, I think that there's just so many really fun options for this that you're still relevant in combat, but you're good outside of that because rogues are great outside of combat. That's my take on it. For levels 12 through 20, there's a lot of different options. You can either stay purely rogue, which I think is totally fine. I think that you get lots of good options from that. You're going to get all of the stuff up to rogue 18, like you're in a really good spot there. You could take another level in Paladin to get, an Oath, so you get a Channel Divinity, you get your Oath spells, you get all of the fun stuff that comes from either playing, a Vengeance Paladin or a Conquest Paladin, or even a Crown Paladin. I think that, your kind of vanilla Paladin is still a really good option. Their Channel Divinities are still excellent, let's be honest. You could go 5 levels into Paladin, because then you're going to get access to Find Steed, so you're going to have more mobility. Remember that any spell that you cast that targets only you while riding your steed also applies to the steed, so you could, be riding your steed and cast invisibility. Enemies will still hear that steed clomping around, but they won't see it coming, which, could be a fun little, Phantom Rider kind of a thing. You could go 3 levels into Fighter. Pick up your Action Surge, your Champion to increase your critical range, or if you want to include more books, you could go into Echo Knight to increase your range that way, kind of act in multiple spots at once, because you're serving your god and he has blessed you with the ability to be in multiple places at once, or something like that. You could get really squirrely and take 2 levels in Barbarian to pick up Rage. I don't recommend this one. You get access to Reckless Attack, but it needs to be made with Strength attacks, so I don't think it's a great option. It's kind of up to you what you want to do. I really recommend staying away from casting. You just are not going to have the mental stats to make your spell save DCs of your spell attacks particularly good, and it's not your best set of options at that case. Bard would be good so that you could throw around some bardic inspirations, but again, you're kind of already living in the Skill Monkey world with all these rogue levels. So my 2 recommendations would be that you go pure rogue from here on out, or you take Paladin maybe to level 6, because Aura of Protection is so good, but you just won't be getting it until way too late in the game to be relevant. Maybe take 1 level in Paladin for some Channel Divinities, but I think the best way to build this is to stay pure rogue at this point. And that's pretty much it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I really love this build. I really enjoyed the one shot that I got to play as this Inquisitor. I really kind of leaned into the RP of being a little bit of the dark side of the church. I did kind of go with the Western Catholic kind of a view, very much the hooded figure and the working in the dark to serve the light kind of a thing. I blended the Templars and the Assassins a little bit, but it was super fun. So let me know if you guys try this out. Let me know if you have any recommendations for changes to this one, because let's be honest, all builds can go a million different ways, but this is the one that I think is super fun and super flavorful and still super effective. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.